preocupações, mas a autonomia universitária, a universidade pública está em perigo. E eu acho que esse é um momento crítico que a gente também deve pensar, deve refletir, e gostaria de aproveitar a oportunidade e deve acontecer, né, no meio dos debates, essa situação que é realmente preocupante no nosso caso, no caso das nossas irmãs, as universidades federais, e especificamente aqui nas 3 universidades públicas do estado de São Paulo. Então, é um assunto que, naturalmente, hoje, eu como reitor aqui estou preocupado, estou diariamente inserido nesse contexto, mas seria importante a gente ampliar esse debate, discutir essas questões, porque certamente o Paulo aqui mencionou, né, uma perspectiva aqui futura possivelmente positiva, não, ou tentando encontrar aqui uma luz no fim do túnel, mas a situação é realmente bastante preocupante e devemos, então, pensar em alternativas, pensar em caminhos, discutir com toda a força de que maneira a gente vai conseguir realmente engajar a sociedade na defesa das nossas universidades. Queria, então, desejar a todos vocês um excelente encontro, uma boa estadia na Unicamp, parabenizar novamente o Instituto de Economia, a todos os envolvidos, as entidades aqui que participaram, e boa noite, boa palestra, bom encontro a todos.
E assim, então, encerramos a solenidade de abertura do 22º Encontro Nacional de Economia Política, o ENEP. Convido, então, os membros da mesa diretiva para que ocupem seus lugares na plateia e que possam acompanhar a programação desta noite. O professor Pedro Rossi vai apresentar o roteiro, ok? Neste momento, então, nós convidamos o professor Pedro Rossi para apresentar o palestrante da sessão especial de abertura do 22º ENEP.
Boa noite, gente. Visto que essa é uma sessão de abertura, eu também não posso deixar de agradecer à Sociedade Brasileira de Economia Política, na pessoa do Marcelo Carcanholo, de me dar a honra de fazer essa apresentação, essa coordenação dessa mesa, e de também organizar esse evento, que nos deixa muito feliz. Queria agradecer também na pessoa do professor Paulo Fracalanza, o Instituto de Economia, pelo total apoio que dedicou a esse evento. E queria também agradecer aos outros membros da comissão local, a Ana Luísa Matos, aluna de graduação, de pós-graduação, a Vânia Pires, técnica administrativa, Marco Antônio Rocha, professor do Instituto de Economia, e a Ana e a Carolina, que me deixaram agora nessa mesa de abertura muito orgulhoso e muito emocionado. Suas falas me deixaram contemplados e, de fato, emocionado. Quero deixar público isso, que eu fiquei muito orgulhoso de vocês. Queria também saudar a todos, em particular os estudantes de graduação, que vieram de todo o Brasil, de vários lugares do Brasil, de caravanas, que dormem aqui na tenda, que dormem em alojamentos colaborativos, e que estão aqui de peito aberto e querendo discutir os assuntos que estão sendo colocados. Isso é um alento para a gente, em particular num momento como esse, onde tem muita coisa errada. Tem alguma coisa errada num país onde 80% da população ou mais é contra um conjunto de reformas, e o Congresso Nacional indica no sentido de aprovar esse conjunto de reformas. Tem alguma coisa errada num país onde 99% dos economistas que aparecem na grande mídia defendem a austeridade, as reformas neoliberais, enquanto a gente faz um encontro com 1.000 pessoas inscritas, com professores e alunos de economia, na sua grande maioria, que são críticos a essas posições. Então, nesse contexto de crise, mas também de fertilidade das ideias e da crítica, de fortalecimento da crítica, a gente tem o prazer de receber aqui, conosco, nessa sessão especial, um economista com ampla envergadura intelectual, professor do SOAS, da Universidade de Londres, autor e editor de 19 livros sobre abordagens críticas sobre a economia monetária, sobre o sistema financeiro, sobre a crise europeia. E, além de um acadêmico com amplo reconhecimento, ele também tem uma trajetória militante. Ele foi eleito deputado grego, do parlamento grego, pelo Syriza, e acompanhou de perto a crise grega, e foi uma das vozes mais firmes contra a austeridade e por uma resposta soberana da Grécia aos seus problemas políticos e econômicos. Então, em nome da CEP, eu gostaria de agradecer imensamente a presença, de passar a palavra e de pedir uma salva de palmas para o professor Costa Lapavitsas.
Good evening to all of you. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, and I'd like to thank Seppi for inviting me. It's an honor to address you. I cannot do it in Portuguese. I'll do it slowly in English, and I am sure that we will communicate. I will tell you an analytical story about what happened in Europe and what happened in Greece. And I think that you will find that this story has parallels and analogs with what is happening perhaps in Brazil and elsewhere, and we can explore that as we go along. The story I will present you is, in a sense, the analysis, the analytical backing for the radical perspective in Greece, the radical perspective that essentially failed. There was a radical perspective in Syriza. It tried to maintain an independent position and to push the country in a different direction and to give Europe a different perspective. it did not work out. I will explain why that is. But obviously, the radical perspective doesn't stop, and it doesn't die, it's still here, and that's what we're discussing here. So let me come to the point quickly, because we don't have very much time, and I can talk for a long time with these things, so I better be precise. The Eurozone crisis is basically pacified. It's not finished, but it's pacified. I say this because on the left, we've got some difficulty identifying the end of crisis. We like to think that crises keep forever. They don't. The Eurozone crisis burst out in 2010, and now it's actually been pacified. So when we talk about the Eurozone crisis, we can talk about why it happened and how it was dealt with, and most important, what has emerged. What has emerged in Europe. Now we can talk about what has emerged in Europe. So in this context, what I will tell you is this. The monetary union, the European Monetary Union that began in the 1990s, has definitely failed historically. It has failed in the sense that originally it promised convergence, shared prosperity, a shared foundation for all European people, common development. This was the logic, and it would have been the foundation for political unity in Europe. This was the official logic. In this respect, it has failed completely. It has failed irretrievably. Such a thing will not happen in Europe. What matters for us, though, I think, is not only the failure of the monetary union. That is obvious. What is very important is that as the monetary union has failed, what has emerged in Europe is a new division between core and periphery. And to be precise, a division between core and several peripheries, 2 or 3 peripheries in Europe. This is of vital importance because much radical analysis, and often Marxist analysis, of the 1990s and the 2000s in Europe used to argue that the division between core and periphery is gone. It doesn't exist. Well, it seems that mature European capitalism recreates that division all the time. It is intrinsic to it, and that's what I want to explain, how it happened. At the core of Europe, it's now very clear, lies Germany, of course, but not all of Germany. It is contradictory, and I will tell you how it is contradictory. Right at the core of Europe lies actually the industrial complex of Germany. It's a very powerful industrial complex that is directed to exports. An export machine, fundamentally. That is at the core of Europe. And around it, there are several peripheries. Which peripheries? For the purposes of this discussion, 2 peripheries are very important. There's probably more than that, but 2 are very important for this presentation. The first periphery in Europe that is now clear is a periphery within the monetary union. We can call it the Mediterranean periphery, although it includes Portugal, which is not in the Mediterranean. But it certainly is a southern periphery. It includes Spain, Portugal, and Greece, and as I will argue in a minute, half of Italy. That is one periphery that has emerged with specific features which I will show you. But there's another periphery that is also very present in Europe, and that is a periphery that is attached to the German industrial core. It's a set of countries which are connected to the German export machine. They have been attached to Germany, bolted onto Germany through foreign direct investment. It's a set of countries that border Germany, but not necessarily. And it includes the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovenia, Slovakia, and increasingly a number of other countries further south that are beginning to be drawn into the German productive ambit. Bulgaria, to a certain extent, Romania. These are countries that contain productive capacity created by German foreign direct investment. It's quite different from the first periphery, which does not have this kind of characteristic. So core and periphery in Europe through the monetary union. And I will show you the mechanism in a minute. What is fundamental for understanding where Europe will go, though, is that the tensions right now, economic, social, and political in Europe, are actually not generated between core and periphery. The periphery, for the moment, has been beaten by the core. The tensions in Europe are within the core. This is common. It's common in core and periphery divisions. The core, which of course contains Germany, but also contains France, and also contains Italy to a certain extent, is a cauldron. It's a cauldron of tensions right now. This is where the tensions of the situation are emerging, and it's important to understand how that is in Europe and where it would lead. Now, how and why? Let me show you a bit of evidence. This is an argument that we have, the analytics I will show you, this is an argument that we have developed in London since early 2010, and it became the analytical foundation for the radical perspective in Syriza, the one that lost out. In any monetary union, a very important element for its survival is the evolution of competitiveness. There is a big debate about the architecture of monetary unions, and we can discuss it, and we can say, does the monetary union in Europe contain a proper central bank? Does it contain a state and all this, a unitary state and all this? All that is important, but the most fundamental thing is the evolution of competitiveness. If competitiveness begins to diverge in a monetary union, then the union will have problems. It will not be able to function as planned. So we'll look at competitiveness in the monetary union for good reason. Now, this evidence here, does it work? Don't know. Maybe not. Yeah, it doesn't work. Anyway. Now, this evidence I will show you is evidence from 5 countries: France, Germany, Greece, Italy, and Spain. The core, France and Germany. The Mediterranean periphery, Greece and Spain, and the in-between country, Italy. Okay? And this shows competitiveness by basically showing the movement of nominal unit labor costs in relation to themselves. Okay, so we start from 100 and we follow the trajectory. So if nominal labor costs move faster in one country than in another, then the country that has faster rising costs loses competitiveness. Okay, that's the basic mechanism. Now, when you look at it, you see what happened in Greece. You see an explosion of unit nominal labor costs until the time of crisis. Collapse of Greek competitiveness. You can see what happened afterwards. Can you see over there? Yeah. You can see what happened afterwards when the crisis began to be dealt with. Unit labor costs declined. Competitiveness was to a certain extent regained through the application of austerity. This is what austerity did. It destroyed wages, basically. It destroyed wages. That's the mechanism of adjustment. You can see what happened here with Italy, which also flattens out. You can see what happened with Spain, which, again, destruction of wages. You can see France which is fairly steady and disciplined, and you can see the country that is really the outlier. The problem is down here. The problem country is the bottom country, Germany. What happened in Germany since the beginning of of the monetary union, is that basically nominal wages were frozen. The problem of Europe and the monetary union starts there. It starts in Germany. It starts in the domestic political economy of Germany. It starts in the collapse of the traditional division of productivity gains in Germany, which used to happen in a tripartite way, labor, capital, and the state. And they used to divide productivity gains annually, and German social democracy worked in that way. In the late 1990s, when Germany absorbed East Germany, and when monetary union was approaching, a new deal was struck between the unions and the employers. It was mediated by the state, and it was put into reality. It was effected by the social democratic government. And this deal basically gave all the gains of productivity to capital, nothing to labor. And the promise was that employment would be protected. The problem in Europe then starts from a change in the balance of relations between capital and labor in Germany. Capital won, labor lost. It was a Faustian pact on the part of labor to protect employment. As that happened, German exporters began to gain a tremendous competitive advantage in relation to other countries in the monetary union. If there's a 2% difference every year, multiplied by 10, you get 20. If there's a 20% competitive advantage, you can't compete. Germany emerged as the most competitive country by far in the monetary union. And you can see the gap has not closed after the crisis. That remains the strength of German exporting capital of the core, the industrial core of the European Union. Some people think that this has happened because of German efficiency and productivity gains. Germany is supposed to be more efficient compared to other countries in Europe. It is. But if you look at productivity gains, you will see that German productivity gains, they're here, are actually very, very weak. Very weak. Weaker than Greece. Weaker than other countries. It is not productivity gains that are behind the success of German exporting businesses. This is important because it shows the weakness, the domestic weakness of this dominant country, and I will come back to it. So to sum up, the core of the problem is capital triumphing over labor in Germany, succeeding in keeping wages down and giving German exporters a tremendous competitive advantage. This competitive advantage resulted in this. In a monetary union, if a country gains competitive advantage, this cannot be adjusted through exchange rate changes. By definition, it's a monetary union. So what will happen is that the country with the advantage will gain a current account surplus relative to the others. Essentially, up until 2009, you can see German current account here. It's actually in deficit in the 1990s. With the introduction of the euro, it shoots right up. German commercial success is a direct result of the monetary union. It shoots right up, and it continues to rise even after the crisis. This happens because Germany gains competitive advantage because of keeping wages down. And this further gain is also related to the euro, because once Germany had dominated the European market, it then began to export. This is now gains from China and the United States. But the foundation of German competitiveness is again the euro, because the crisis in the eurozone has kept the euro down. So, tails, Germany wins. Heads, everybody else loses. Okay? So, whichever way it goes, German exporters benefit from this and have triumphed. Now, obviously, if this happens with regard to Germany, someone will have deficits. And the deficits are very clear. The deficits appear here. They are from Greece, from Spain, and so on. You can see it differently. Until the introduction of the euro, which happens here, commercial relations between the European countries are fairly stable. They trade with each other. This is Europe, right? Countries trade with each other. They're fairly stable. Once the euro is introduced, they diverge. The euro has caused tremendous disturbance of trade in Europe. It's a disturbance that has benefited German exporting capital at the expense of everybody else. Look at what happens after the crisis starts. The application of austerity closes the gap for Greece and for Spain. Austerity compresses domestic demand, collapses imports, the deficit began to shrink in those two countries. But look at what happens with Italy and with France. Italy and France are the key countries. Italy has a deficit increasingly, and then it goes into surplus. Italy is now under permanent austerity pressure in the monetary union.